I want to give a quick shout out to these fellow people on the screen: Dora, Michael, Thou Shalt Play More, and Weinstein Gaming for being the top supporters on my channel and for helping me making all this possible. Thank you very much. And if you want to know how to be part on this list and part of the support, stay tuned at the end of the video. Hey everyone, this is Zero Prime and welcome back to another episode of Zero Showcase, a series in which I showcase the games I collected over my time here in Beijing, along with some other smaller stuff. And today's episode might be a little bit of a long one, but what we're going to go over are some of the games that I showcased in my China bootleg series. Now, and I'll definitely show that in another video, but I got a Retro Freak from Thou Shalt Play More, and with that I was able to play some of these games that I collected at the different markets and such. That's right next to my neighborhood that I live in, and I figured that now's a good time to start going through. At least I'm going to show you the ones that worked, as in these are the ones that were showcased in that series. But then another episode I'm going to showcase the ones that are not working, in a sense that until I can figure out how to properly, like how to clean and try to figure out how to make it work and everything. But I figured that before we get started with that, for those of you that don't know, bootlegs are basically products made to look like they're the real authentic thing while being fake. And to give you a very good example, I have these right here, the Project Zero trilogy that some of you may, know very, very well and all that. Now, a little story about this, that essentially I got these on Taobao, and there was about, I would say maybe about like 10 bucks, and I thought that was a good deal and everything, because especially I wanted to get the, the Japanese version of the Fatal Frame series. And when they came in, I was excited, but then when I looked at them, I noticed that something was a bit off. Like, for one, the cover looks nice and everything, but it just seems to be a bit unnatural in a sense. Like, it's hard to kind of put it into words, but it seems like the paper itself, given how old the game is, it still seems to be like brand newish and everything. So that's the one thing that tipped me off about, gave me the understood feeling. But then when you open it, you can see right here that the CD cover here, it doesn't really, look genuine. It looks like, someone just quickly copied it, got like a very bad image of the CD, copied it, and just stuck it on here, right here. So, like you can see here, like there's even like a faint little thing in the background here. And here it looks a bit discoloring. But to truly know that this is not an actual PlayStation 2 CDs, that all PlayStation CDs have the inner markings on the inner ring with the PlayStation logo and stuff like that, to let you know that this is a real thing. But as you can see here, there is none, so this is definitely, all the three of these are 100% bootlegs of the Fatal Frame games. Felt a bit disheartened when I saw that and everything, because I thought it was like the real deal. But then it's like, you know what, it was only 10 US bucks, basically, nothing like, it's not like, I spent like thousands and thousands of dollars on that, because if I did, then I would pretty be pissed off about that. But for 10 bucks, it's like, you know what, just hold on to them and just keep them as like, part of the showcase, how to tell what is a bootleg and what is not for the PlayStation 2. So, yeah. So that's like for that part there. The next set, I figure we're gonna start with, let's start with the Game Boy Advance. Now these are the these games I found on the flea markets here, and sometimes they try to, usually it's like depending on how or what you buy, like if you buy like a bunch of them and such, it could range between like say 10 to 60 RMB, which you know it's like not that bad of a price. I mean everything like the first one we have here is the hang on, let me get the focus in. This one's the King of Fighters FX Neo Play. Now, given like this, I would say that this is a bootleg because I never seen a Game Boy Advance game have this kind of outer casing and all that, and especially I never seen one that have like the markings like right up here. If I can. Man, it's kind of hard to get like a zoom in on that on the GoPro. It just definitely seems like this is definitely a bootleg right here. Next, we'll have like Crash Nitro card, and of course there is such a thing and everything, but the thing that's missing around here around the edges that it just has like the rating system, but it doesn't have the Nintendo seal of approval, which, as you all know, that's like the #1 way to make sure that it's an authentic, Nintendo game. But here, that's definitely not on this one, and this seems to be like, a quickly, blast on sticker and such. So, there's this one right here. Oh, let me just, forgot to put these back in the cases that I have right here. Right here. Okay, next that we got is this one right here, which I think this is the first Golden Sun game, which I never really played before back in the day. But this one definitely here, different, outer cover and such, and of course, the sticker label is completely different, no Nintendo seal approval, and it doesn't even have the Nintendo name like around here, so you can definitely tell that this is a bootleg. Trying to put this back here. Oh, let me try another one. Hang on. Yeah, that's funny. Like some of them came with the little plastic cases here, so it's kind of like even though they're bootleg, at least it'd be like interesting pieces to talk about. Now here, for example, this is it's a little bit tricky because. Yep, it does have the Game Boy Advance here. It has the Nintendo seal, and there was a Castlevania double pack, but there's still something that I'm not 100% sure that if this is authentic or not. Because to my knowledge, I don't think there's ever any serial numbers here. And also, like I said, it just doesn't seem off well, especially with the reflecting of a light on the on this label and everything. So yeah, I think the only way to find out for sure if it's real is that you have to open these up and look at the circuit board, I think, to see what they are. But I don't quite know how to do that without breaking them and such. And yeah, I mean, the bootlegs, I mean, who cares if they get broken? True, but yeah, call it call it a little oddity to have in a collection, Now, let's see if I can. It's this way? No, not that way. Maybe this way. Okay. There we go. Next, we got this one here. Now, I know this is what was it? The Prince of Tennis series, and it says right here, 2004 Stylus Silver, which I don't know if that's an actual name for the, if they ever had a Game Boy Advance game of this one or such, but again, like I said, I'm not sure if this is authentic or not. Probably not, because it doesn't have the usual labels and everything on this, so. And here's another prime example of something that's obviously a bootleg is Metroid Fusion. Now, a lot of people have played the Metroid Fusion game. It's one of the popular games for the Game Boy Advance era and such, but you can definitely tell that this is a bootleg for the obvious reason, the label here, because Nintendo would never, ever, have labels like this on, especially on a popular game as such, and all that. And even like the texture of it feels off, so yeah, this is definitely another bootleg. Next we got, we have the Harry Potter game on the Game Boy Advance. And again, it may have the EA, WB, but no Nintendo seal of approval and all that stuff, so more likely this is just, someone just like quickly printed this out, stuck it on to make it look like, it's an authentic game. So next we got a Dragon Ball game right here. Now, of course, I'm not sure what this is called, because it's kind of hard to see the label right here, because especially the sticker is like, very badly aged and everything. Or badly printed, let's just say that. But this is definitely a bootleg, no Nintendo seal of approval on it. And like I said, the label is another obvious thing. Even though it has the Game Boy Advance thing, they're not that hard, because technically the only thing you need is like obviously the chip right here, the motherboard chip for the game here, and you could just buy the cases like this or get them made easily made and such, and then just make your own games like that way. So next we got one of my favorite franchises, which is the Luna, but the Luna Legend, which is basically the retelling of the Luna Silver the Luna Silver story from the PlayStation, or technically the Sega Saturn, but they put it onto a Game Boy Advance, which is not bad and everything. It's just some of the things were different, but obviously for this one, it's definitely a bootleg, because again, no Nintendo seal of approval, uncertain about this code here, and all that stuff, so definitely a bootleg. Next we got Woody Woodpecker's Crazy Castle 5. Now, I have heard about the Crazy Castle series, that this is the only one that has Woody Woodpecker. The Crazy Castles 1 through 4 had Bugs Bunny in it. And again, an obvious bootleg. The label doesn't seem right. It doesn't have the necessary labels, Nintendo seal of approval, and all that stuff. So, yeah. Next we got, to be honest, this is like a soccer game, which I can't really tell what it is, but you can also easily see, like, the labels are like, printed and just like glued on with like cheap glue that, wears off over time and such. And again, I know it sounds like a broken record, but it may have the Konami, but it doesn't have the Nintendo seal of approval and all that. So, yeah, that's that. And next we got, whatever this one is right here, that I'm guessing it's like a tactics type game, but can't really tell what it is. But again, the usual drill, no usual labels, no seal of approval, and all that. And the last thing to showcase in this is the Fire Emblem, which, is that, as usual, it doesn't have the necessary seals. It has this weird thing here to say, like, oh, you can play on the Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Advance SP, GBM, Nintendo DS, Nintendo SL, and it has this weird 100%, part like, it's 100% real. No, it is not. Okay, so that's it for the Game Boy Advances that work. Now let's move on to the Genesis / Mega Drive cartridge that I found on the markets. Now some of these things get rather interesting. Like here, we have Doom 2. Now, To my knowledge, I don't think there was ever a Doom game released on the consoles, especially on the Mega Drive or any other consoles. So I'm pretty certain that this is a bootleg of such games. So, and then of course we have the Michael Jackson game, which, you know, you would think like it would be real, but again, it doesn't have the necessary seals and labels tied to it and everything. So, wait, somebody spent like 45 RMB on this? Definitely not worth that price. If if this was like sold back in the day and everything, and that was the selling price of that, you know, if you lived in Beijing, China at the time and everything, you know, this is what you would get. But if you're like a foreigner and you felt like, oh, it's the Michael Jackson game that I want, and you get it, it's like, wait a minute, it's fake and I spent that much on it? What a ripoff! But there's that. And then, of course, careful, doggy, don't ruin my stacks. Next, we have another here, which is a Gunstar Heroes. Now, I tried, it does work, but the issue is that for whatever reason on the Retro Freak, it doesn't load on it. But now that thinking about it, probably because it's on the US setting, well, this is a European or a PAL version, because it says it only works on the Mega Drive for on the France or the PAL version of the console. So not sure if this is real or, you know, fake, but I'm gonna say it's probably not real. Next we got a rather interesting one that I saw that I just had to get because, you know, I mean, look at this. Look at this. You know, you have a woman here that's like taking off her shirt and everything. And I think this was just like that like a simple shoot the puzzles to reveal the naughty image of a beautiful woman and that type of stuff. And it's like, sheesh. I mean, even the Sega logo here doesn't look right. And again, like I said, when I got these things, I knew in my head that these are bootleg, these are not real and everything. So it's no surprise. But when I saw this, it's like, I had to get this for the sake of, you know, what it is. Otherwise, it'd just be, you know, lost in the trash or time. Next, we got something that's called Bare Knuckles Free. Yep. Now, from the cover of it, it looks like it was from the Fatal Fury. No, not Fatal Fury. Is it Fatal Fury? No. What was it? Oh, the Streets of Rage. That's what I was thinking about. Streets of Rage type game and everything. But for some reason, they just call it Bare Knuckles Free and all that. It doesn't even have the Sega logo on it and everything, so definitely a fake. And here we have a Yu Yu Hakusho game, which I can't tell you what it is and everything and all that. And definitely is 100% fake, because even look at the lettering here, that it seems to be like a bit offset than what you would expect from an actual Sega Genesis game or Sega Master Drive game. That, again, this is obviously, you know, a printout and everything. The last one that we got is something that, you know, is this. Dynamite Duke. And, yeah. What the heck is this? What the heck? And again, if this was the asking price, you know, and back in the day, I would feel ripped off about this if I was a foreigner, you know, buying this out of a whim and everything. And again, the labeling is off-centered and everything, that you would think that if this was really a legit Sega Genesis game, somebody in the you know, in the printing or the processing line would be fired for that. I mean, yeah. Okay, that covers the Sega Genesis, Sega Master, the Sega Master drives and all that. So now we're gonna get into the bulk of this little collection here, and that is the Game Boy and Game Boy Colors. Now there are a ton, and I'm telling you, a ton of these in the flea markets. That there's for some that sells electronics and everything. There's like a whole ton of these things here that it is just nuts and all that. It's crazy, and like I said, you'll see like how many I have that are the working ones. That doesn't include the ones that I have that are not working, quote unquote, and such, but like I said, and there we go. Okay, let's start with this first one right here. As this is definitely like a harvest, I think it's at the Harvest Moon, but it definitely, it's definitely like, a bootleg, because for one thing, the cover doesn't seem right, it just says game. It may have Game Color, doesn't have Game Boy, doesn't have the Nintendo seal and everything, so this is definitely, a bootleg. And, let me put some of these back in the case. There we go. Next we got, now this is rather an interesting one that I saw, because can you guess who that character and that animal is? That's from the classic Tenchi Muyo series, but yet it's like Grim Linkus? May have the Game Boy Color label, but again, no Nintendo seal of approval, game, and all that. So it's like, it was like a weird little thing to see that it's like, you would think you wonder like, oh, it features like these characters, but it has nothing to do with that. Okay, next we have Muhammad Ali. That's it, just Muhammad Ali. And again, that's the game cover. No seals, no labels, or any of that stuff to verify it's like legit. Just, again, it's like, this is why, yeah, bootlegs are bad and